Hi everyone, sorry that took a little bit. Welcome to Outbreak 2020, hosted by Rocky Mountain Best Robotics and Best Robotics as a whole. I will be one of your commentators today. My name is Jay.
I'm another commentator this morning. My name is Shannon. Welcome, everyone.
So, taking a little bit longer to get set up than we thought, but that's all right. In just a second, we'll switch over to a screen showing some of the current teams.
So, the first teams up this morning are Broomfield High School and Aurora Frontier P through 8. And what we'll be doing during the driver time trial and the autonomous time trial matches is explaining to you a little bit about what it looks like the robots are doing. For Aurora Frontier, we have 5 drivers. They are Alex, Mark, is it Matei? Is that right,
Sorry, Matei, if we
Jay?
pronounce your name wrong.
Matei. Sorry, Matei. Hopefully someone can text us or text us or call us on the phone and let us know. Ethan and Alex. For Broomfield, Ethan is the driver. So we have 2 Ethans today.
I'm really excited to see how these kids have decided to tackle this game field, especially since it got switched so quickly with COVID and everything starting up.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to see what these kids have done, particularly because they've had to learn so many new skills this year. They had to write an engineering notebook describing a robot that they didn't actually get to build. And then instead of getting to build and drive the robot using the kit of parts, they had to learn a brand new software, which is actually pretty complicated to drive the robots. And they also had to learn how to both do driver time trials, which is one set of scoring criteria, and the autonomous mode, which is a different set of scoring criteria. So it's been a very challenging years for these students. Some of the teams also performed additional optional activities, including making a video or preparing a website. They also, those are the teams that are competing for the best award, they had to do the regular marketing presentation, do that online. They also had to build an online exhibit, which is basically a website online. So I want to congratulate all of the teams for the amazing work that they've done this year, learning so many new skills. I hope they feel like it was worth the effort, and I hope they have a great day-to-day driving.
Yeah, there were a lot of new challenges added this year in order to hopefully combat some of the coding boredom that can come. Coding's great, good skill. It can also be a little boring. And some of the other ones that were added were the Critical Design Review, Programming Challenge, Engineering Notebook, of course. And along with the marketing presentation and team exhibits that we've seen in past years, we also had a knowledge and skills quiz as well as a Minecraft challenge. Um, I'm personally very excited to see the Minecraft challenge and see what the teams did with that.
Okay, it looks like the teams are still getting ready and kind of checking out their MathWorks Simulink setups to make sure that they're ready to go and participate in their hopefully driver time trials in a few moments.
Hmm. I haven't seen too much of this game leading up to today, so I'm very excited to see how these kids work through these problems.
Yeah. Um, okay, it looks like they're having to download. So what the first things that the teams have to do is they have to download these randomized I guess they're kind of the randomized games that start the layout. And right now, Jay, I'm not sure what you're seeing on the screens. So does the live feed screen have either of the rooms up?
Currently, the live feed screen does not have either of the rooms up, but it looks like Broomfield's getting pretty close um, to
Okay.
starting, and it looks like Aurora Frontiers having a little bit of trouble getting started, but I expect they'll be there pretty soon.
Okay. So on the Broomfield screen, we do have a little, a kind of a screenshot of their Simulink um, uh, display. And if we want to put that up, we can try to talk a little bit about the game field before folks get started.
Ah, I'm seeing that a couple people are having trouble hearing the stream. I can turn the volume up for y'all.
Okay.
That's no problem at all. So just give me a quick second.
All right.
All right. Hopefully that's a little better for y'all.
Looks like they're giving the judges thumbs up in Broomfield's room.
Good stuff.
Yeah, this is Larry. So yeah, they're getting ready to get going on the Broomfield side.
Excellent.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for
Thanks,
the
Larry.
update.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm jumping back and forth between rooms, so I am listening to your guys' conversation and theirs too.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. I don't know if we have an overlap person in the Aurora room who can tell us when they're ready to go, but that would be helpful. So we've scheduled 90 minutes for each of these rounds today, just because we've got a lot of moving pieces, and we're hoping that we can get 5 driver time trials in today and 3 autonomous time trials if the teams are prepared to do those. So it'll be 90 minutes with hopefully up to 8 opportunities for the students to drive the robot or have the robot automatically perform the tasks. So it'll be a little bit of a wait between each of the time trials, because the judges have to download the field position at the end of the field and then run the scoring software and then show the team the score for the round and have everybody make sure that that's the score. Everyone agrees on the score. So there's going to be a bit of a time lag between each of the driver time trials, but hopefully what happens is each of the rooms will be on
Sorry if you can hear me typing a bit in the background.
Yeah, so hopefully the rooms will be on different schedules, so we'll be able to focus our attention on one room at a time.
Yep.
All right.
Looks like Broomfield's almost ready, and it looks like Aurora Frontier is almost ready as well. So in just a minute, we'll switch over to showing the team's rooms, and you guys can see them compete.
Okay, a little bit of background. Oh, there we go. It looks like Broomfield's getting ready to go. So a little bit of background on the game. The game is played on a 7x7 grid space. And in 7 of the grid spaces on that 7x7 board are 3 cells. So a total of 21 cells in 7 grid spaces. Some of the cells are originally infected, some of the cells are immune, and some of the cells are uninfected. And what the game players need to do is they need to go figure out which cells are infected and either isolate them, or if they're in a grid space with some uninfected cells, vaccinate that grid space. They have 3 vaccines to deliver. They have 3 spaces on the board, which during the time trials are randomly located, and those are isolation spaces. So if an infected cell is in those isolation spaces, it can't infect cells in the adjoining grid spaces. Or if there are uninfected cells in the isolation spaces, it protects them from any infected cells in adjoining grid spaces. And then there are isolation platforms. And so those sort of function the same, but they have to be able to lift the cells up to the platform or retrieve cells from the platform, depending upon which of the time trials they're in. So it looks like they're still getting ready in the Broomfield field. So if they're starting with the driver time trials, some things to be aware of for the scoring. Every team starts each time trial with 200 points. That's important because at the end of the game, the scoring software determines whether or not the originally infected cells and there are 3 of those, so 3 out of the 21 cells are infected. So it seems like a pretty low infection rate. But if those cells are in a cell with an uninfected cell, they immediately infect that cell. If they're in a cell next to an uninfected cell, they infect that cell, and then those cells can go on to infect other cells. So infection can spread very rapidly across the whole game space if the infected cells, the initially infected cells, are not isolated or placed far away from the other cells or in a cell that has with the vaccine.
I can pull up an image on the stream in just a second, actually, kind of demonstrating kind of what that could look like, and how the kind of this whole game is scored, because I know it can be a little confusing sometimes hearing us talk about it.
All right.
All right, I'll put that up on the stream in just a second. So this is a little demonstration that y'all will see in just a really quick second about how this game is scored. So there are 2 types of trials. I believe Shannon already went over these a little bit. Driver controlled and autonomous.
Yeah. So if it's the table, I think it is on the left side in the
Mhm.
blue table, those are the scores for the driver controlled time trial. So as you can see at the end of the game, so at the start of the game, the premise is there are infected cells in the body and they threaten to spread. You can see a small picture of the game board on the right. There are 21 cells at the start. Those are the little red dots. They are randomly distributed. The infected, 12 uninfected, and 6 immune cells are randomly distributed across those 7 grid spaces. The little white squares you see, those are the isolation frames during the driver time trials. Those can be anywhere on the board. The purple figures that you see, those are the isolation platforms. Those remain in those locations throughout the game, both autonomous and driver time trial. The image that you see for the isolation frames, that's where the isolation frames will be in the autonomous time trials, because the students have to code their robot movement, and then they need to know where those are. Those can't be randomly placed because they don't have an opportunity to respond to the random placement in their code. The driver controlled time trial scores, again, they start with 200 points. And at the end of the game, their final score depends upon what happens to the 12 uninfected cells that were uninfected at the start of the game, and whether or not they become infected, newly infected cells. If they're in a grid space, they lose 10 points. If they have an isolation frame where there's an infected cell and some uninfected cells, they'll lose 15 points for every uninfected cell in that isolation frame. If they're on the low isolation platform or high isolation platform, and they look the same height there, but the students know which one's the low form versus the high platform, they'll lose 25 or 40 points. So they definitely do not want their uninfected cells to become newly infected by the end of the game. So they really need to figure out which cells are infected and get those things isolated, or vaccinate any uninfected cells that are near them. Now, the cells that they do, if they are able to vaccinate some of the uninfected cells, then they can earn anywhere from 20 to 80 points per cell vaccinated. So if you can see on the left of the image at the top, there are 3 little circles, the robot's at the left, and there are 3 little circles on top of the robot. Those are their 3 vaccines. Any of the uninfected cells that remain uninfected at the end of the game, they score 10 to 40 points per uninfected cell. So let's see if the teams are getting ready to go here.
Looks like Broomfield's just finishing up their download and setup.
Okay, all right, let's talk. If you've still got the chart up there for a few minutes, then the autonomous time trials, the goals of the autonomous or the pre-programmed robot movements are to collect cells, deliver vaccines to the isolation frames. That's why those isolation frames need to be in a known position before they start the autonomous time trial, or clear cells off of the isolation platform. So those are the 3 activities that the autonomous mode robot can perform. And you can see the scores there. So there are 3 infected cells. If they collect those, then they lose 20 points each cell. and if they collect an immune cell, they lose 10 points. If they collect the uninfected cells, they get 10 points for each one of those. They have those 3 vaccines to deliver to the isolation frames. If they can do that correctly, that's 20 points per vaccine. And the platform cleared 2 of those. There'll be a cell on each of those 2 platforms at the start of the game, and each of those that they clear is worth 25 points.
So just a really quick clarifying question. Red cells are infected, green cells are
No,
immune? No?
no. So when they start the game, all of the cells are red. They
Okay.
can't tell which cells are infected, immune, or uninfected. What they
Okay.
can do, if they've programmed their robot to detect infection,
Okay.
then they can go and try to detect which of those cells are infected or uninfected or immune. So
Okay.
hopefully they've been able to figure out a way to do that for their, especially for their driver controlled. It might be a little bit harder to have that happen in the autonomous time trials,
Okay, I
given that the
understand.
driver can't instruct the robot to do anything. It all has to be pre-programmed code to move the robot and perform the functions.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So good question.
For
Okay.
those of you
So
watching, um, the stream is on a 30-second delay. That just helps with latency and making sure that everyone has a clean stream experience. So if you are watching it and also maybe watching your driver do their time trials, there will be a delay. That is perfectly normal. Do not panic. Let's check in on the teams.
all right, it looks like they're still getting ready. They are hard at work this morning.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of intense faces on our Google Meet screens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a learning curve for all of us, not only doing streaming in these kinds of environments, but also just the setup and I mean everything is so new this year, just so we had to adjust. So
That's the name of the game, Outbreak, adjusting to the threat.
mm-hmm.
So at the start of the year, the teams were all getting kind of excited. We had the Incision Decision, little rollout teaser video at the end of last year. And then the hub started getting the game materials, and we're like, oh, wow, this looks hard. And then in March, when it became apparent that we did have the beginning of a global pandemic, BRI, which is the National Best Robotics Organization, decided they needed to do something else just in case we could not have in-person competitions this year, or some hubs could and some hubs couldn't. So they went back to the drawing board and within a couple of months had pulled together this Outbreak game with 3 different versions. So there was a version with an actual physical playing field that the teams could compete on in case, some locations could have in-person competitions. Then they had kind of a hybrid version where suppose the teams could not get together with one another, but each team could meet individually in its classroom. So there was a version for the classroom competition where basically the classrooms would stream to the hub. We would watch them play their game, sort of like we're doing here, but they would actually play a physical game. And then the final version was this full online version of the game with the electronic, the MathWorks Simulink game field, and everything would be done via Google Meet meetings rather than anyone meeting in person. So that's what the Rocky Mountain Hub chose back in, I believe, kind of July, August time period. And it looks like we made the right choice because otherwise we wouldn't have a competition today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as hard as it is to not be able to meet in person and coordinate everything over Zoom meetings and all of that, it's all the teams that made it here and all the teams that tried did such a good job at working through these challenges and working in a challenging environment with things that we've never tried before, never had to worry about before. So for that, I applaud all of you.
Yes, they've done an amazing job, and hats off to the coaches and mentors who've helped these students. They've had to help them remotely. Usually in the past, they've been able to be in the same space and kind of look over their shoulder, make sure they're kind of quiz them if they see them sort of headed in the wrong direction, because in best robotics, the students have to do all of the work. The coaches and mentors can coach and try to, help them think about a problem the right way, but the students have to do all of the problem solving on their own. The coaches can't tell them, well, if you just make that 2 inches shorter, I think it'd work better. They can't do that. They have to ask them, what do you think is not working? How do you think you can change that? And so to do that through Google Meets is incredibly challenging. So it's been an amazing learning opportunity for everyone who remained in the competition this year. Normally we would have 29 to 30 teams in our Rocky Mountain Best Hub. We've got 6 teams competing today. So I think that should tell the audience how incredibly difficult this competition was for these students, that a large majority of the teams, just said, look, we've got too much going on. It's a challenging enough fall. And so we think we're gonna wait until we can do an in-person competition again. And we all know that the students particularly love to build and drive and compete with their physical robot. And so hats off to the students too, who tried all of these new activities, even though their most fun thing they didn't get to do. So it's an amazing crew today.
Mm-hmm. So let's check in on these schools.
Yeah, let's check in on the schools.
Looks like Broomfield is getting their last little bit set up.
Okay. I'm going to turn on my captions in both rooms too. But I think Larry's plan is to let us know when it looks like they're going to get going there.
Cool. All right. And it looks like Aurora Frontier is also working through the last bit of technical issues. So...
Okay. All right. Well, I think it was a good decision that we made, that Lois and folks made a couple of weeks ago after the practice day, to let's give them a little more time so we can make sure that they have enough time to get through their time trials.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
All right. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to know what the indicator lights mean. Oh, hey, are we getting ready to go? Looks like we're ready to go for Broomfield.
Okay.
Okay.
In that case, I'll transition over to the screen showing the teams about to compete.
All right, Aurora Frontier looks like they're running through the last set of checks, so we could have 2 games going here really quick. And Broomfield, their robot is moving. It looks like they've gone to that first isolation frame, but they're not going to drop a vaccine there. Where are they headed? Okay, they've dropped a vaccine under the isolation platform. And then they're headed to that far grid space. And so if you can see the game image, you've got a few different views of it. You have the kind of, top view that shows the full game field and where that robot's headed and where the cells are. You can see on those 2 purple platforms, you have cells up there. We don't know if those are infected or uninfected. If at the end of the game, those are uninfected, everything in that quadrant's uninfected, and it doesn't become infected, that's a lot of points for those teams. Let's see. So they seem to be, I can't tell if they're going to drop and it looks like Aurora Frontier is starting to move as well. We've got both robots on the field. Boy, Aurora Frontier is moving fast. Let's see. Broomfield has dropped a second vaccine. Aurora Frontier has picked up a cell. Let's see what they do with that cell. I can't tell if they've determined whether or not that cell is infected or uninfected. And Broomfield dropped a vaccine. It looks like it's in that cell in that grid space with 3 cells. It's taken that last vaccine. Maybe what it's going to do is vaccinate the cells in that quadrant with the isolation platform. Okay, they've got their indicators up. Unfortunately, we don't know if those indicators tell us whether or not there's an infected cell, but they have deposited all 3 of their vaccines. Aurora has moved cells to that isolation platform.
Looks like they've still got all
placed
their
them up.
vaccines, though.
Yeah, they have all their vaccines, but they've placed a cell on top of that platform. So I wonder if they know the cells in that platform are safe. Okay. Oh, and Broomfield has picked up a cell. Oh, maybe not. It's hard to tell. Yeah, it looks like they did place a cell in that isolation frame. Aurora Frontiers also placed a cell in an isolation frame.
And we're
and they
watching.
Picked up another cell. Oh, look at that. Wow, Aurora Frontier is driving pretty fast. They have cells in 2 isolation frames, but we don't know if those cells are uninfected. If they are, then that would be plus 15 points each. So it looks like they're taking a cell over to that 3rd isolation frame. If it's uninfected, it's plus 15 points. If that was one of the infected cells, then they have protected any cells in adjacent quadrants or grid spaces. Oh, it looks like a similar strategy developing over here in Broomfield. They're also placing a cell in an isolation frame. All right. Aurora, it looked like they were trying to pick up a cell from the platform. All right. They're robots. They did pick up a cell. They have a cell. I can't tell how much time is left. It looks like they still have more than a minute and a half, and Broomfield has more than 2 minutes left. So one of the things to be aware of on these feeds, technically these driver time trials are supposed to be 3 minutes, but depending upon the speed of the connection, the 3 minutes may take more than 3 minutes of our time, but it's not more than 3 minutes of the game elapsed time as far as the computer that they're operating is concerned. And that may be why the Broomfield robot seems to be moving fairly slowly, and that just may be a connection speed issue. They both get 3 minutes on sort of MathWorks Simulink time to complete their tasks. So we've got Aurora now has a total of 4, perhaps almost 5 cells in isolation frames.
Oh, and it looks like Broomfield finished their first run.
Finished. Look at that. Wow. Okay. Yeah, they did. The count. I couldn't read the countdown. So they are done. And the color of the cells will tell us the final score. And so I can't quite see the colors. My screen's too little. I need to get rid of the.
From what I can see, it looks like that the 2 cells that were placed in the white squares, the isolation areas, yes?
So if the red is the initially infected, then they successfully isolated at least 2 of those.
Very nice.
Yes, absolutely.
And it looked like, from what I saw, they had placed their vaccines on one of the others.
Okay. Now they're going to they're going to send their final cell positions to the scorekeepers and the referees. We had a meeting this morning to discuss whether or not we were going to post the scores on the YouTube link. And because it's not a typical game day where we run a leaderboard that scrolls throughout the teams throughout the day, and teams can kind of watch their scores to see how they do in the initial matches, we're going to treat these more like a final round. So everyone's just going to have to wait to the end, unless you have your own little scoring software Excel file, wait to the end to find out how well all the teams did.
Oh,
So
and it
that was
looks
super
like
neat.
Aurora Frontier is starting their second time trial.
Oh, wow.
Or
Wait a minute.
maybe they're not starting their second time trial, but it looks like they've certainly finished their first one.
They finished it. Now we'll know the positions of the cells.
Looks like
So Larry's in
Broomfield.
this room. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, hi
Yes.
Larry.
Ah, good. So I just actually brought up Google Meet on my iPad so I can listen in on the narration, which is like really helpful, and listen to my room too. So yeah, it looks like Broomfield is plugging along.
Yeah, no, both the teams are doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we couldn't quite tell because the Broomfield, the countdown looked to me like they had quite a bit of time left, but they actually didn't. So I thought it might be a bit of a feed issue, but no, it wasn't. Then their game was over.
Yep. So they're doing good. Looks like
Yeah.
Broomfield's having some issues trying to bring up their code.
Yeah, and that's
Oh,
perhaps
okay.
something we should expect throughout the day as well.
So I was going to check the rule books and see. Yeah, the colors in here are different than the colors we're seeing. So hopefully red is infected. It says in the rules that blue is uninfected, but those weren't the colors that we were seeing. So
Right, we were
we'll
seeing
figure out what
red,
those
green,
are.
and brown.
So the predominant color will be the initially uninfected. The
Which was
three will
brown.
be brown. Okay. All right.
And then there's 3 infected cells, correct?
3 initially infected cells.
Okay. So those would
And
be
so
the red
that's what.
ones.
Yeah. So red does mean an infected cell. Later on in the day, we may have to change that for one of the teams because there does need to be a color shift. But it may be in the indicator lights and not the cell colors in the game. So you're saying brown is the uninfected, red's the infected, and then the third color will be the immune cells. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then, just from what I remember from Broomfield finishing up their first run, they had successfully isolated 2 of the infected cells and delivered a vaccine to the third, from what I saw.
Okay, so that sounds like they may get a fairly high score.
Yeah, there
Either
it's pulled
because
up
they.
again, just for a second.
Okay.
Didn't see exactly what Aurora Frontier had done, but hopefully we'll get to see that in a second as well.
Yeah, we didn't get to see the colors at the end, so.
But yeah, so far it looks like these teams are doing really well.
Yeah, they are. No, they're so compared to what we saw on practice day. They are crushing the game right now.
Oh, Broomfield started their second run, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
They're ready to go?
Yep, they're running on competition 2.
So Jay, are you getting you're able to get a good image on yours, right? I'm not. I've
Yes,
got
I
to fix
am.
mine so I can. These game boards are tiny for me. Okay, there we go. This is
they
better.
are.
So Broomfield's second run has started.
Yep, and looks like Aurora Frontier is just getting the config files for their second run.
Okay, so they're downloading the file that sets the cell configurations at the beginning of the game.
I believe so, yes.
Yes, all right. So they'll be started in just a little bit. Meanwhile, Broomfield, so there are those 5 lights on kind of the bottom left side of the game board. And those are the lights that I thought they could have set up in some way to tell them what kind of cell they're dealing with when their robot gets close to a cell. But they're lighting up together. But they seem to have dropped a vaccine.
Looks like right on that first cell
that
there
grid
that their
space,
robot's
right?
climbing
Oh,
over.
they dropped a second one. Wait a minute. Why are they putting 2 vaccines in one grid space? What's going on?
2 different cells, perhaps?
Well, maybe they've moved cells there. No, see, they've
yes.
got 2 vaccines in that grid space.
But there's 2 cells there as well.
Let's see. They dropped that other vaccine in the. No, they have it. They still have it.
Looks like Aurora Frontier's just getting finished up with that second config. And Broomfield is delivering a cell to an isolation space. That is what those white squares are called, right?
Yeah, those are isolation frames. Yeah,
Isolation
and then the
frames,
purple
okay.
platforms are the isolation platforms, but the
Okay.
cells have to be up on there to be protected from infection.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
hopefully not with an infected cell.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. Looks like Broomfield's robot has paused. Is it going to deliver another cell? Oh, yep, just delivered another cell into one of the isolation spaces. And it looks like they are moving a third cell at the moment, Broomfield, to the third isolation space.
Okay, and I'm back. I needed to go grab some team number information so we can track scores today. We have lots of different codes for our teams. Sometimes it's the name, sometimes it's a scoring sheet number, sometimes it's a team number. So, all right, so Broomfield still has one vaccine to deliver. It has a cell. So I wonder if what they are doing, and we just can't tell, is finding those infected cells, placing those in isolation frames, which means then none of the uninfected cells can be infected as long as they're not in those isolation frames along with the infected cell. So that is an excellent strategy if they're able to determine that. So they picked up another cell. They've moved it. They're moving it to a different grid space.
Looks like they might be trying to deliver it to that isolation platform.
Oh, that would be a high score if they can get if they can get. I don't know if they can get a vaccine up there. If they could get a vaccine up there with the cell, that's 80 points. As long as and their game is over. So it looks like they are finding the infected cells and placing those in the isolation frames.
Looks like they got all three of them.
It does. And so what that means then is that they get some score for every single uninfected cell on the game field, because either those cells will be uninfected, or if they've got some uninfected cells in that cell, in those two cells where they place the vaccine, then those are vaccinated uninfected cells. So this is a really good round for Broomfield.
Looks like Aurora Frontier is just getting the config set up for their second game, so we should be expect to see that in just a minute or two.
All right. So
the driver for this round, I believe, is Mark. Their first driver was Alex. And it looks like the driver for the first round for Broomfield was Ethan Dorman.
Do we have another driver name, or is it going to be Ethan Dorman the full time? That's what we don't know.
Yeah.
So usually in a typical year, they cannot use the same driver game after game after game. They have to have a driver's list selected beforehand, and that is turned into the compliance judge. And they have to have a certain number of drivers, which depends on how big their team is. So if they, normally they would have to go through their drivers one at a time, and then they can restart after all of the drivers have driven around. But this year, BRI, because of the complexity of the game, plus whoever's driving has to have the MathWorks Simulink software on their machine. They've suspended that requirement, and now they can have a regular list of drivers like Aurora Frontier does. They have 5 drivers, or they can have the same person driving if that's the only person who has the MathWorks Simulink software on their laptop.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So BRI and the local hub very sensitive to the software and hardware capability needs this year to perform this task.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, it looks like Aurora is getting ready. Oh, they're driving and they're off. They have a fast little robot. Look at that thing go.
Yep. So Aurora's starting their second game, starting off strong. Looks like they're moving a cell to an isolation platform. Or...
Oh. Now I can't tell if they're testing these cells before they move them. But they picked up. Oh, did they throw that up there on that
They sure
platform?
did. They sure did.
Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh, they've got another cell. Are they just tossing them up there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's see if they can get a vaccine up there. In the physical game, the vaccines would be tennis balls, which would be pretty challenging to get to stay on those platforms by just tossing them up there. Mm-hmm. So maybe there are a few advantages to this virtual game field that in reality, it wouldn't work quite as well as one would imagine. So they've picked up another cell. And it looks like, I wonder if they know that's infected. So they're going to go and deposit that in the isolation frame on the game field.
And keep in mind, all we can see is what the teams are doing. We don't know what cells are infected or uninfected or anything either. But if these teams can figured out a way to program their robots in such a way that they can tell what cells are infected and uninfected, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Especially if you look at that bottom left image, which is kind of the driver's view. I can't see the cells, so I wouldn't know which cells they're testing. So that's pretty amazing if they figured out a way to guide that robot to a cell and determine its infection status.
Mm-hmm.
One thing to keep in mind is that one thing they couldn't do is take all of the uninfected cells and put them in the same grid space. There's a limit of 3 cells per grid space. And if there are more than 3 cells in a grid space at the end of the game, one of the game rules is that all of those cells are automatically infected. Sort of a crowding concept. They're not socially distanced, and so they all get infected. So there are a couple of quirks in this game. So hopefully what they have right there is an infected cell that they're going to place in that isolation frame. Good job. Look at that. They are doing an amazing job driving. They still have those 3 vaccines to deliver. I wonder what they'll do with those. Okay. So I don't know. Jay, are you seeing that scoring software now on the stream from Broomfield?
I sure am.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what you're seeing right now is a little bit of behind. Well, what you were seeing was a little bit of behind the scenes. That's the Excel spreadsheet that accepts the end of game position file that the teams send to the scorekeeper, and it identifies how many of which kind of cell are in each of those ending positions. And then it automatically scores the game. BRI developed that as a way for us to score these games as quickly as possible. And so that's what you were looking at. I didn't catch the numbers, so if you did, don't say anything.
It's a secret.
It's a secret till the end of the day.
Looks like Aurora Frontier is picking up and moving some more cells around. Haven't dropped any of their vaccines yet, but they
Oh,
seem
now
to be
this is
pretty sure
interesting.
what they're doing.
Yeah. That's
Oh, and
I'm not
Broomfield
sure
started their third
either.
time trial.
Oh goodness, there they go. Now
Oh
we've
my
got
gosh.
two teams. They're moving fast. They've grabbed a cell quickly.
I just remembered I have dramatic background music. I'm very sorry for
Oh,
not putting that in earlier.
I was kind of hoping you had that because we had a little bit of dead space there. Okay, so we're rearranging the cells. Now this is interesting. Aurora Frontier is placing a lot of cells in those isolation frames. So hopefully those are the ones that have 2 cells each. Those are uninfected, and the isolation frames protect those cells in case any of the cells in adjoining grid spaces are infected cells. Hopefully they're not putting an infected cell with an uninfected cell, because then even though it's in the isolation frame, the uninfected cell will be infected.
Looks
But
like
nothing.
Aurora Frontier has finished their second run through, as
Okay, you
Broomfield
want
is
to,
completing their third.
let's see if we get to see where their infected cells were. Oh, and they have a cell on the robot. I wish I had Joanne here. She would tell me if how that cell is scored. All right, and let's turn to Broomfield. So they still have all of their vaccines. It looks like they've partially moved a cell into the isolation frame. In the physical game world, what would happen is that would be scored based on where it was predominantly located. Well, it'd be interesting to see how the scoring software scores that. Looks like they've found something. Now their 5 indicator lights seem to come on at the same time, and I wonder if that means they've found an infected cell that they know they can now pick up and move to an isolation frame to protect the other cells. Let's see what they do with that cell. Maybe that's what's going on.
Looks like Broomfield's moving a few cells around.
Yeah, it's so they're I wonder if they're testing the cells. And so if they're uninfected, they're just leaving them alone and they're just testing all the cells to try to find an infected cell to move to an isolation frame.
Right.
That's a pretty good strategy.
Looks like Aurora Frontier is moving towards that third time trial.
Okay, and how's Broomfield doing on their 3rd time trial? They still have all 3 vaccines on their robot. We just saw they picked up a cell.
Looks like they've got about
Oh, hey, we've got
50 seconds
information
left.
from the team has just informed us very kindly that what happens when their robot finds an infected cell is all 5 of those indicator lights light up. So let's see if they take that. Hopefully what they had on their robot was the infected cell and they were going to move it. But it's no longer on the robot. Okay, And Aurora is downloading their third configuration file.
Looks like we should be seeing their robot up shortly.
Okay, and in Broomfield, they dropped a vaccine. It's hard to tell on my screen. It's right on top of a cell, but I can't tell which grid space that cell is in. It seems to be straddling two grid spaces. So hopefully what's happened is they have vaccinated that grid space with either 2 or 3 cells. So those would be protected if there are any they've dropped. Oh, hopefully that may be an infected cell that they've dropped in the isolation frame. All right.
It looks like Aurora Frontier is starting their 3rd time trial very soon.
Oh, and Broomfield's done. So, it's hard to tell from what we're seeing here. So they do have an infected cell in an isolation frame. So the cells around it are protected. The uninfected have more cells that don't in the end affect the scoring. So you can see that one infected cell in the isolation frame. That means the surrounding uninfected cells are protected unless they're also in a grid space or next to a grid space with an infected cell. I couldn't see all their infected cells. So that one's going to be interesting to see how that scores.
Yes. Looks like Aurora Frontier is picking up and moving cells as fast as they can.
They are. They have 1 in the isolation frame, 2 in that isolation frame. Wow. Hopefully those are both infected cells. That would be great. Man, they are rocking this. And look at them lift that cell up to the isolation platform. Oh, let's try. Oh, I can't tell if no. They seem to have 2 cells stacked on top of each other up there. So it's hard to tell. That cell went up and then it disappeared. So I assume that means it's up on that isolation frame.
Yeah. You know, when I first heard about this game, I was really confused as to how teams would program their robots so differently. It didn't seem like it was that possible to program a robot that did so many different things. But even just seeing these 2 teams and seeing how they've programmed their robots and seeing the differences between them, I'm eagerly awaiting to see what all the other teams have done.
Yeah, no, I think, for what looks like a really simple game, I think this could have been a lot of fun for them trying to figure out what sort of strategy do you take.
Absolutely.
You figure out a way to test those cells on the game field to find the infected cells, go find all those infected cells and drop those in the isolation frames? Or do you, one team at some point was talking about its strategy was to kind of attack the cells in the middle first and get those all sorted out and then deal with the cells on the edges so they could stop infection from spreading all the way across the board. And Aurora seems to be placing cells up on isolation platforms. Hopefully those are all uninfected cells. That would be a good high score for them if those are uninfected cells and they remain uninfected at the end of the game. Now we have a scoring sheet popping back up for Broomfield. And so in each of those, you get the infected, uninfected, immune, and vaccinated, and they took it off so we can see. They're fast. They're super fast. Looks like they're getting ready to go again. Okay. I know where to look for the score on that sheet. The rest of you can.
I don't.
Just enjoy the magic of that spreadsheet with a built-in macro to determine what is and isn't infected at the end.
Ooh, and Aurora just lifted up another cell on top of those isolation platforms.
Oh dear, they need to not have a whole bunch of cells in that grid space. They need to maybe move some of those along. There we go. It looks like they're moving them out of there. Now, I'm curious to see what their strategy is with the isolation frames. They have 1 in each of those 2 far away from the main game space. Oh, now they're putting multiple cells in those. So those might be uninfected cells that they're trying to keep uninfected and score by having them in the isolation frames at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So uninfected cells in an isolation frame are 15 points each. And if the cells on the isolation platforms remain uninfected after the spread of infection, then those are 25 on the low, which is to the right on your screen, and 40 on the high.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Broomfield's ready to go. We have a few seconds left in Broomfield's. I'm sorry, a few seconds left in Aurora's game.
Oh, and it looks like Aurora Frontier just finished their third time trial.
Okay, so we'll watch to see what happens there, but all the indicator lights are up on Broomfield. So they have picked up an infected cell and are moving it away from the rest of the cells. It looks like they're headed to that cell on the left, that isolation frame on the left side. They're almost there. They're going to deposit that infected cell, and that protects a whole lot of the uninfected cells. Good job, Broomfield. We're still waiting for the Aurora. Oh, they didn't show us the colors at the end. Okay, so we don't know how well Aurora did. We'll have to wait to the end to see.
I can say so far that I'm very impressed with all that these teams have done.
You know, compared to 2 weeks ago, this is this is every best robotics season. On practice day, which typically is only 1 week away from game day, a lot of the students will show up with a chassis and no mechanism to play the game. But what they do on practice day is they get to look at the other teams and see what seems to be working. And then they can go back and either redesign a robot that didn't perform as well on practice day, or they have a bunch of ideas, and between practice day and game day, it is just amazing the progress that they make and how much better those robots are by game day. And then they get to work on them throughout the regular physical game day and make them better and better as they go. Here they get this one shot. So they don't get that advantage of getting to improve their robot over a whole day, since they just get this 90 minutes to perform a time trial. But they're doing well. They are doing so well compared to where these robots were 2 weeks ago, when a lot of them, number one, we couldn't get the configuration files to them. So we're doing what it looks like. But they were posted, but for some reason they couldn't download them. So they had to work with their kickoff configuration files, which was fine. But we kind of missed out on the opportunity for that transfer of information from the competition hub to the teams.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of the robots, they were like, we still don't know how to make this robot move, but they are doing amazing. I think it's going to be an exciting game day. Okay,
looks like
so
Broomfield's...
Go ahead. Sorry, Jay.
No worries. Looks like Broomfield is starting their fourth, I believe, time trial.
Yeah. I think this is their fourth one. Okay. So they still have all vaccines loaded on the robot. Vaccinated, uninfected cells are pretty important for the scoring. So hopefully they'll drop those before the end of the round. But it looks like they're probably still trying to look for their infected cells. They have 2 cells in isolation frames, and they've been really successful in locating those infected cells and dropping those in the isolation frames, which is pretty key to not getting any negative points for uninfected cells that become newly infected. So, like I said, you start off with 200 points, and you can lose anywhere from 10 to 40 points for every uninfected cell that becomes infected. So it's a really good strategy they're using to collect those infected cells and get them isolated.
Absolutely.
Because then they get positive scores for every uninfected cell left on the board, and no deductions. So let's see if they can find. Looks like they have one left to find. They're looking for it. Can they find it? Is it on that high platform? Or the cell right there below the high platform? No. Oh my goodness. So they've moved. Are they moving the cell from below that high platform, or are they going to test that cell up there on the top? No, they seem to still be searching. So the nice thing about the virtual robot is it looks like it can run right over cells without moving them around on the game board. The teams in their critical design reviews seem to be very aware of the fact that they had to design kind of conceptually a physical robot for their engineering notebook in their critical design review. And so they were all really aware that they needed to be able to clear those, the cells would have been pieces of 2x4. And so their robots needed to be able to run over those cells and not accidentally move them around. So the game's over. It looks like they did. Oh, yep, that infected cell was on top of the platform. That's isolation platform. Hopefully that keeps it from, I believe, from infecting the cell below it. So that was good luck to have a infected cell start in a spot where it can't create any damage. So those initial cell starting positions again are randomly located at the beginning of the game. The students get a configuration file from the hub. They download it just before they start playing the game, and that tells not them, but it tells their game which of the cells are infected versus uninfected. So then they still have to go out and figure out which are infected and uninfected. And it looks like Aurora is getting ready to go on their 4th round.
Let's see.
Are they? No, they're not ready to go yet. Are we going to get to see a peek at the
5th?
We get the scoring for Broomfield?
Yeah.
Looks like they're still setting up. So, well, Jay, this has been an exciting day of games. I think we're going to see some great scores out of these rounds.
Absolutely, yeah.
And right now, the Broomfield strategy seems to be pretty good. If you can get those infected cells into those isolation frames, or know that they're up on the isolation platform and therefore can't infect other cells, then boy, that helps a lot with the scoring, because you don't get those -10 to -40 points for infecting the initially uninfected cells.
Right. Looks like Aurora Frontier is moving on to their, I believe, 4th competition.
Yep, they're selecting their 4th configuration file. You can see right there.
Oh, and I believe Broomfield has just started their 5th.
Oh goodness. Boy, they're getting fast at this now.
Practice makes perfect.
Yes, no, this is great. One thing for everyone to be aware of, even though we're not telling you the scores, we will be dropping the lowest driver time trial score today. So if your team looks like they had a bit of a rough outing in one of their 5 driver time trials, don't worry about it. We'll be dropping that score. Okay, Broomfield. Oh boy, they're going to be going at the same time. We are not getting good luck with games going one by one, are we, Jay?
No. Makes it more exciting
Okay,
though, I think.
it does. But you know, I want to watch one game and really focus on it and not have to, you know, go back and forth on the games. Um, so let's see. So Broomfield is checking cells. That seems to be their strategy. Regardless of who's driving, they're going to check. Oh, I think they found an infected cell.
Looks like
yeah,
it.
they got it. Yep.
Looks like
So-
Aurora's having a little bit of trouble, but totally all right.
Yep. No, we
Technical
got
difficulties
plenty-
are to be expected.
Yes, they are. So we are.
Looks like Broomfield's picking up and moving that cell.
Yeah. So it looks like they'll be able to get all their driver time trials in, hopefully, in the 90 minutes. And Broomfield does have that infected cell. Look at that. So when that cell's on there, those lights the indicator lights stay lit up. So that's kind of nice. They know they've got the infected cell. It's still sensing it, and now they're going to go and remove it to an isolation frame.
Mm-hmm.
So, very good. Very good. And then once they've dropped it and moved away, they no longer have the indicator lights.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So we've got one infected cell isolated that protects all the cells that would have been adjacent to that grid space with the isolation platform. And then if they infected cells in the adjacent spaces and there are uninfected cells in the spaces next to those spaces, those become infected. So that's how infection spreads across the game field very rapidly at the end of the game. So it looks like they're looking for, they found another infected cell. So it's in a space with, look at those cells are really close together. Now they're gonna have to figure out which of those cells is infected. I'm not sure. Well, they picked up one. It looks like they picked up the infected cell. So it was a very good idea to keep those indicators on as they move away from those other two cells in that grid space, because they know they still have the infected cell. It's on the robot. So place that in the isolation frame. And now the two cells that were in the grid space with that cell are protected, and as are the other 6 cells in the adjoining cells to that isolation frame. The infection can't spread outside that isolation frame. Now they're going to find their third infected cell. They're checking those grid. Oh, okay. They found it. Now they need to figure out which of the 3 in that grid space was the infected cell. They've got the 2 in the space below the platform. They've got the 3 right there in that side space, I think. Oh, and they've picked it up. They've got that third infected cell. This is going to be a nice score for Broomfield. They can get that thing placed in an isolation frame or far enough away from the other cells that it can't spread infection. And then they can focus their time on maybe dropping their vaccines if they do that, to get a little bit more of a score bump for a vaccine, or finding uninfected cells and placing them up on those platforms.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Aurora Frontier's about ready to start their, I believe, 4th time trial.
I think we're on the 5th time trial.
Possibly.
Oh, let me check. Let me check the data.
Thought it was, yeah, it seems like it's trial 4. I think they just had some technical errors the first time.
Okay. Yeah, no, you're right. They're starting their 4th one.
No worries.
I had a score in the wrong place. Okay, so Broomfield has dropped their infected cell in the isolation frame. They have successfully isolated all of their initially infected cells. That means every single uninfected cell left on the playing field is going to score positive points. None of them are going to get infected.
Oh, and Aurora Frontier just lifted up a cell onto that isolation platform.
Oh, they did. Wow. Okay. So I don't know if they figured out a way to determine which cells are infected or uninfected.
But either way, they are moving very determinedly.
Yeah, no, they Their robot moves fast. Look at that. Now they've got another cell up there on the isolation platform. Oh, I can't tell. It looks like it's still on the robot.
I think it is still on their robot. Yep, but it looks like they're trying to lift it up there.
They still have their vaccine. Sometimes the vaccines disappear from one of the views, and I think they've deposited all the vaccines. I wonder if they can put a vaccine up
and
there.
Broomfield finished up their trial.
Oh, we missed the scoring. So, but we know that they got all of their infected cells isolated. So that'll be a good score for them. So all 12 of their uninfected cells will get a positive score. All right, so Aurora, they have a cell on their robot. And this will be, is this Ethan driving? That's what my notes say.
I believe so.
Okay.
Actually, it looks like it might be Mark. They might have, I think they mentioned some technical issues with some of their drivers.
Okay. All
which
right,
happens. Good. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so
they are moving cells up to
Broomfield.
those isolation platforms fast.
Yeah, no, their robot's fast.
Mm-hmm.
How many? I can't see how many cells are up there. They can't put too many cells up there.
It looks, I can maybe 3 or 4 if I had to guess.
Oh my goodness, they're just putting them all up there.
It's
All
gonna be a
right.
cell sandwich.
I need Joanne on the line. She's our rules maven. And so if they got the vaccine up there, can they vaccinate more than 3 cells in a space? There's some of these fine points of the rules that she knows. And the scoring software will obviously know. Okay, that was a good round for Broomfield. So they're done with their driver time trials. They need to shift to the autonomous.
What time are we supposed to switch over to the next set?
So I believe we switch over at 9:15. I will check our
10:15.
our master plan for the day. So 8:40. Oh no, I'm sorry. It says
I believe
10 o'clock.
Is it 10:15?
No, it says 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. So I think because we got to a late start today, that doesn't seem to be right. But
Okay.
the time trials were supposed to start for this first round at 8:30 and last for 90 minutes. So then the time trials for the second round start at 10 o'clock and they'll go to 11:30.
Right.
And then we'll have a break for lunch.
Right.
All right. So Broomfield, let's see. I have not seen an autonomous time trial.
Looks like they're pulling up that scoring software again.
Yeah, there's the scoring software again. There we go. It's updated. It's run through. And you can, well, now they took it away. They tease us with that. And then they take it away too fast for us to see where the cells ended up. Okay. And
it looks like Aurora Frontiers finished up their 4th time trial.
Okay. So all right, so they have one more time trial of their 5 to go, and Broomfield is getting ready for their autonomous mode.
And we did get it confirmed that the first round ends at 10:15, so they've got 15 minutes, both teams.
10:15?
Yes. The meeting coordinators for the second round.
Oh, that's
join at
okay. The
10.
meeting coordinator starts at 10. You're right. You're right. Okay. Nope, you're right. And the judges refs join at 10:15. Okay. Right. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, Laurie, because they have 90 minutes, I believe, to run through the course, so they start at, was it 9:40? or E45.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so here goes the autonomous mode for Broomfield. This will be interesting. So going back to the autonomous mode, the objectives are: 1, collect cells. Hopefully they can tell whether or not they're infected or uninfected. Don't collect those infected cells. Deliver vaccines to the isolation frames and clear platforms. So what are they doing here? Oh, the robot's off the game field. It seems to be rolling along the edges like a Roomba. Oh.
Interesting strategy.
So now let's see if it turns right. It's back at the robot starting box. Nope, it's still going along the edge of the platform. Okay, it's rotating. So it seems to be taking dimensions or something. It's running under the indicator lights.
A little bit through the indicator lights, but we'll say under.
Okay. No, it's still going around the edge of the game field.
This is an interesting strategy. If I've ever seen one.
This is what happens in autonomous mode sometimes. It just there's a line of code in there that is now just running it around the game field.
Cool.
But it's great to see that they've got this autonomous program set up. Let's see what they do.
Oh, looks like Aurora Frontier might be close to starting their 5th round.
Okay, all right. Ooh, oh, they are going right through those objects, aren't they?
Yeah.
My screen went blue and orange. Oh, see if they can grab one of those cells. No.
Yeah. Even the last couple years, where we've tried to do the autonomous modes with the line followers, teams have sometimes figured out ways to circumvent that, so I'm curious how teams have decided to utilize their autonomous modes today. I'm not suggesting that teams cheat, by the way. I would like to clarify that.
No, yeah.
But
yeah. Okay,
I am curious.
We're started.
Yep, looks like Aurora Frontier is starting their 5th driver trial.
Yeah. Oh, and they've picked up a cell and they're moving it to an isolation frame.
Wow.
They are moving really fast. So one of the differences this year for the autonomous mode seems to be that we have to let that 3 minutes run. Normally during a physical game, if something kind of goes sideways during an autonomous mode, the driver can pick up the joystick and end the autonomous mode, and they can reset the robot and try it again. So unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be an option for us this year. So the team just has to let that clock run down, and hopefully they've got a strategy to edit the code when it's over, which well, no, it stopped at 118. Something's going on.
Oh.
So hopefully they can do a quick fix to their code.
Yeah.
And
meanwhile,
go ahead.
Sorry. Meanwhile, it looks like Aurora Frontier is picking up and moving more cells on top of those isolation platforms and into those isolation frames.
Okay. Yeah, they are very good at lifting cells on those platforms.
I'm curious how many teams we'll see today have programmed that into their robots.
I agree. I'm hoping a lot of the teams have done that, and the teams who are coming up in the next couple of rounds, at least they're getting the advantage of watching these first teams and kind of seeing what looks to be like good strategies, and maybe they can make a little bit of a programming change in the robot before their rounds. That's always kind of a benefit of game day. The teams can watch all the other teams play, see what strategies are successful for scoring, and then go into the pit area and work on their robots throughout the day to improve their performance. So unfortunately, these first 2 teams don't get that advantage because they only get to drive this one time.
Right.
But there are 4 other teams who I hope are looking and seeing what seems to be some advantageous strategies in this game. So we're getting
They're picking up and moving more cells.
Yeah, no, this Aurora team, this P8 team, it's a middle school team. They have done an amazing job of programming their
all the way
robot.
up to the top of that platform again. Yep.
Yeah, no, they are throwing those cells up there. But yeah, I think you're right. I'm not sure that they can tell which cells are which. If they had been able to tell which cells are which, they would have crushed this course. Because they could move the infected cells to the isolation frames and then toss a few cells up on those platforms, and they would score very high scores for doing that.
Even as it stands, though, they're doing an amazing job.
Okay, all right. So, do we know if Broomfield is going to try one more autonomous run? They certainly have time to do that. They've
Looks like they're messing with their code a little bit.
Okay, great. No, that seems a good use of their time. They've got some time to do the code, download a configuration file, try again. Hopefully they have a different motion on the robot this time. So we have a lot of cells and isolation frames for Aurora, lots on top of isolation platforms. It would be great if none of those are infected cells, because an isolation frame that has an infected cell and uninfected cells, those uninfected cells will get infected, but it's the cells around it will be protected. So hopefully what they're doing is moving only uninfected cells into those isolation frames. Hopefully that's what they're doing. They're moving pretty fast. I wonder if that is their strategy to kind of, first of all, they've kind of cleared that center of the field. So, you know, if there were cells there, they wouldn't get infected. Like if there were uninfected cells around those frames, they won't get infected.
Right.
And cells next to them, they won't get. Almost out of time. Oh, 4 seconds left. Okay.
And are they? Yep, they deposited that cell up there, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, and it's over. Looks like Broomfield is moving on their second autonomous.
Yes, look at that.
And is it going to do the same? Sure looks like it so far.
I wonder if they're just, are they trying to collect cells? I can't tell what they're doing. Yeah, no, off the game field again. Yeah.
If it works, it works, so.
Yeah. So the thing to remember, autonomous time trial also starts with 200 points. And so let's see, if they could get to an isolation frame and deliver a vaccine, then they get 20 points. I can't tell if they've collected any cells or cleared. It doesn't look like they've cleared those platforms either. I see a cell on that one platform. So drop a vaccine. Oh, okay. Now, we don't know if Aurora is going to be able to run an autonomous mode. It looks like Aurora may be done. They may not run an autonomous mode, which is unfortunate because you still start with 200 points. And actually, yeah. And there's a separate award today for the highest autonomous mode score. All righty. Looks like Aurora did really well in their 5th round. Very good. Uh-oh, what's going on?
Broomfield looks like they're finishing up there.
Are they going to finish up? Are they going to run a 3rd autonomous mode? That would be good to see.
Looks like it.
Okay.
Might be a little tight on time, but if they can do it, that would be very good for them.
No, they've got a few minutes. All right. So coming up next are Abraham Lincoln High School and Liberty High School.
Let's see if Broomfield is going to do that third autonomous
Oh,
trial.
it looks like Liberty High School is getting ready to go. Let's see if Abraham Lincoln's getting ready to go too. I think these are going to be two really strong teams here. I think you're going to see some great rounds coming up.
Let's see.
Okay. So the thing about autonomous time trials is there's an award for autonomous time trials. It's the top scoring team. It'll be the average of whatever number of time trials they get. The thing is, you start off with 200 points. So just going out there and doing almost nothing gets you 200 points. So it'll be good to see the teams try these, and it would be great to see some good autonomous robot rounds. So they kind of don't have enough time to run it a third time, Jay. So I am going to move over to the next set of rooms, and we need to get driver information and get ready for the next competitions.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I can't get my mouse to work here. Drive me nuts.
Ah.
Are you in the rooms? I
will be in just a second.
There we go. All right, so
This is Liberty High School and...
So Abraham Lincoln and Liberty are the next two teams?
I don't know why my label got messed up on the stream. My bad.
Uh-oh.
That's okay, I can fix that real quick.
That
What
doesn't
team
sound
number
good.
is Abraham Lincoln again?
Lincoln is 1302, Liberty is 1332. So it'd be easy to get those.
Yep, no worries.
And I keep seeing other cursors on my screen. And
yeah, and Shannon, so for Abraham, we only have one driver. He's bringing up his stuff now to present. So he'll be the only person from Abraham. He's just getting ready.
I've lost one of my extended screens. Okay, RG. So RDJ comes over here. It's Abraham Lincoln's feed. All right, I got the games up. So it looks like there's maybe some configuration file downloads.
For Liberty, yep.
On Liberty, yeah, and I see for Abraham Lincoln, I think folks are joining the room.
Mm-hmm.
So
we shall see how these teams do. I'm excited.
Yeah. This is, let's see. So getting the configuration file.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some technical issues for everybody are to be expected. It's part of this game, so.
Yeah, no, and they have 90 minutes. So 90 minutes starting now, according to my clocks.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have plenty of time, I think, these two teams.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I have to say, as much as I would have liked to have an in-person game this year, and I think that's a sentiment shared by most people, if not for the circumstances, I have to say, being able to stream and commentate in my pajamas is a definite plus of being able to stay at home. My little Star Wars
See,
pajamas.
I was afraid we were going to be on camera today, so I didn't wear my pajamas. I'm wearing my best collar T-shirt, and boy, but I'm having some technical issues at my end. My screen's frozen. How about?
No, the screen for Abraham Lincoln's a little frozen. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's not me. Thank goodness. All right.
Yeah. Looks like we might be having a few internet connection type issues with them.
Yeah, oh dear. We don't want to see that.
Yeah, that's rough.
We want to see kind of our best game today.
Yeah, and a friendly reminder to the teams out there who are presenting and going at the moment is that if you are presenting, whatever is on your screen will show up on the live stream. So do be careful if you're having to log in or do anything that you maybe don't want other teams to see, that you stop sharing your screen during that.
That's a good suggestion. I'm glad you thought of that.
So, I don't think there would really be anything that would be awful, but if you're worried about logging into something or anything like that, just please take that into consideration beforehand. Looks like Liberty's moving on to their first competition very shortly. Still a few maybe technical issues for Abraham Lincoln.
All right. Okay. They're seeing. Oh, I'm trying to see what they got connected to their indicators. Let's see. It looks like there's something green, orange, and red. So maybe we'll see a different strategy for detecting cell. Yes, cell type. It looks like they've set them up so that they can identify the cell type. Now they have one cell. That doesn't make. There we go. Now the game started. All right,
so
here goes
Liberty
Liberty.
Is going off to their first round.
Fast-moving robot. They dropped
all three.
Oh, they dropped all the. Okay, a vaccine is missing from the game field.
Hopefully
Did they drop
back
two
up
on
in a
top
second.
of each other?
But either way, it looks like they've dropped all three of their vaccines so far.
Okay, maybe we gotta watch their indicators carefully. Oh, it's an orange. Orange. What does orange mean? Orange means something.
They had a
now red.
Red, orange, and green programmed, and I'm not sure which one it would be, but it would make sense that red would be infected, orange would
there
be
we go. That makes sense.
normal,
Right, so
green
it looks like they've got a red cell. And they are putting it
with the vaccine.
With the vaccines. Okay. The key though is that if that's if red means infected, there's an infected cell in the isolation square, and it can't infect any other cells. Oh my gosh. Do they have two red cells next to each other? What a lucky layout.
Sure looks
like
it.
That was a lucky starting layout there. To get two, if red means infected.
Oh, and it looks like Abraham Lincoln is getting set up as well.
Liberty, orange, orange, orange. Hopefully orange means uninfected. There's a lot of orange, so maybe that's what that means. Green. Green means immune, probably. Orange means uninfected. Orange, uninfected. Green, immune. They're looking for that last infected cell. Boy, they're moving so fast. It's hard to know which cell they're testing sometimes. Okay, well, looks like all uninfected, infected, or uninfected, immune, uninfected. Where's that last infected cell? I wonder if it's up on top of the platform. Oh, looks like maybe they can test it up there. Oh, that looks uninfected. That'll score. All right, should have my phone on silent.
Oh, looks like they're reaching up there to try and get one of those cells.
Okay. Oh, I just saw an infection. So platform may be an infected cell. They got to get that thing off of there.
Mm-hmm.
It's an isolation platform. They need to get that other cell off of there.
Oh, looks like they've got one of the cells.
They have the infected cell. They have that third infected cell. They're going to drop it in that isolation frame. Boom.
Yep. It
Okay,
looks like
they
Abraham
pushed it up.
Lincoln's about ready to start as well.
So they have about 15 more seconds to maybe get some points by getting uninfected cells on top of those platforms. Because right now they're all protected from the virus. But now they can run up the score by tossing. Oh, I wonder. They have 4
They are
cells up
almost
there.
out of time, but
Yeah, that was a good scoring round.
yeah, congrats to Liberty.
Yeah, that was a good round for them.
Afraid I don't know off the top of my head who their driver is, but congratulations. You did very well.
So I'll check the chat there and see if there's anything about who the driver is. So I have 2 names. Oh, yes. So Paulina and Veronica are the drivers for Liberty.
Okay. Well,
You
very
don't
good
know
job. I
which
believe
one?
Paulina's driving the first round. So very good job, Paulina.
All right. And
It looks like Abraham Lincoln is running their first trial too, if I'm not mistaken.
all right. So has Lincoln started? It looks like the clock is running, but I don't see any movement. So hopefully they can figure out what the issue is on the robot and get it going again. All right. Okay, it looks like we got a bit of a downtime. We're not going to get to see the Liberty game field at the end. But we do have the name of the drivers.
Looks like Abraham Lincoln's working through some technical things on their end.
Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully they get that done and have 5 good time trials, driver time trials. Well, I've got a low battery. Somebody's got a low battery. It's not me. Looks like we're maybe getting ready to go second round for Liberty.
I gotta give him credit. Liberty's very on top of making sure that they've got all the files as needed when they need it.
Yeah, no, they're doing a great job today.
Looks like
Okay,
still
let's
maybe a
hope Abraham
technical
Lincoln
issue
gets-
for Abraham Lincoln, but I would love to see their robot soon, so I hope they get it figured out.
Yes, I think so. Oops.
Looks like Liberty's getting ready for their second run. Driver this time is Veronica, I believe. Oh, then it looks like Abraham Lincoln might be ready to do their run.
Oh, they're getting ready? Okay, here goes Liberty on run
Liberty.
2. All right, let's watch these really carefully. So they drop all the vaccines. And they're going to start testing cells and probably look for infected cells and drop them in there with
I
the
think
vaccines.
they just got one, yep.
They got one, all right. Oh, they dropped it successfully in that isolation frame cell. Okay, oh my goodness, another infected cell right there.
Wow.
Okay, so they've got 2 of their infected cells. Well, let's see. It looks like it's in the isolation frame. Hopefully that's the case. Otherwise, it'll infect those 3 cells and then everything in the 8 cells around it.
Mm-hmm.
So any more? Oh, I'm not seeing any more infected cells on that side, so it's got to be on the other side of the game board or up on a platform. Did they test that one on the platform? Did you see?
I did not.
Okay, so those look like uninfected. They're searching. Okay, there's some cells right there that we can't see. They're hidden behind that platform.
Oh, that one looks like it might be
they
infected.
found the last infected. Yes, good job. Okay, so just in case we've got some new viewers who have just logged on to the YouTube channel to watch the game, this is the game field is a 7x7 grid space. At the start of a game, then there are 21 cells randomly placed in 7 of those grid spaces. Among the 21 cells are 3 infected cells, 12 uninfected cells, and then the remainder of the cells are immune. And the objective of the game is to keep the uninfected cells from getting uninfected by the end of the game. So with Liberty's strategy, they have programmed their virtual robot to detect each cell type. And as they drive around and find those infected cells, they place them in that white square, which is an isolation frame. There are 3 of those on the game field. And so infected cells that are in the isolation frames cannot infect the uninfected cells in the grid spaces around them. So by isolating the infected cells, they suddenly can make all of the cells, the remaining uninfected cells on the game field score. So I'll just remind folks of the scores in case we have some people just joining us now. The teams start off with 200 points at the beginning of each driver time trial, and then after they finish 5 driver time trials, they can do some autonomous time trials where the driver no longer operates the robot. It has to operate on its own. If they have, at the end of the game, if infection spreads from the uninfected cells to the infected cells, they lose anywhere from 10 to 40 points from their initial 200. And so if it's just a newly infected cell in a grid space, it's -10. If it's a newly infected cell on that lower high purple platform, that's -40 points. But if they can stop the infection from spreading, now they get positive points for every single each of the 12 uninfected cells on the game field.
Looks like Liberty finished up their round. Sorry to interrupt.
They finished up their round. That's great. So all of hopefully those 3 cells in that isolation frame are the 3 infected cells, and they'll get anywhere from 10 to 40 points for the remaining uninfected cells. So it looks like hopefully Abraham Lincoln's getting ready to go here. All right, looks like we got a little bit of time now, so we can talk some more about the game. So, like I said, at the beginning of the game, the 21 cells are sort of by type randomly placed in those 7 grid spaces. They'll start in the same 7 grid spaces, including one on top of each of those isolation platforms, and then 2 cells in the space below it. The teams get that configuration file just before they play the game, and the configuration file identifies for the software whether each cell is infected, uninfected, or immune. So that's why Liberty can drive up to a cell, and because they have their indicators, they can tell what type of cell that is. Because the software that they're running for that configuration of the game knows which cell, knows the state of that cell. Okay, is it a 1, 0, or 2? We can see there on the right-hand side, they're reading the configuration states of those cells, and they're linking those to their indicator lights so they can tell the state of those cells. So it looks like they're about ready to start round 2 at Liberty.
I think you mean round 3.
Is that round? Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I mean round 3. You're right, Jay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, they are burning through these rounds. So we don't know who the driver is. It's either...
I believe it's Polina.
Polina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're going to, you think, trade back and forth. Polina. Oh, can you tell by whose laptop it is?
By who's presenting, yep.
Ah, excellent. Okay. All right, so Polina's driving this round. They're doing extremely well. Let's see. They found an infected cell. They are finding those infected cells very effectively. Oh, it's one of those 2 down there below that isolation platform. Which one is it? Oh, I think it's that one on the right. Oh, they've got it on the robot. So this is very interesting. I think they are, they get rid of those vaccines very, very quickly, so they're not in the way, so they can rapidly identify and move those infected cells to that isolation frame. That's, they've already isolated. Nope, that one's uninfected. That's an orange. They're moving that out of the way. So I think it's that other cell. That's the infected cell. They're going to move that, one of those 2 to the isolation frame. Oh. I've got a little bit of background noise here. I'm going to mute for a sec. Okay, Jay? Sorry.
Sounds good. No worries. Looks like Liberty's going after that, I believe, 2nd or 3rd infected cell. Yep, they just picked it up. Dropped it off with those vaccines in that isolation square. Looks like they're searching for that 3rd infected cell now. Could it be? Ooh, we might be seeing something from Abraham Lincoln soon.
Okay, that'd be great. Looks like they're setting up their programming. Mm-hmm. So there seems to be a lot of tossing of cells up onto that high platform.
Mm-hmm. Good for points. Liberty's almost out of time. Looks like they've got about 10 seconds left. And it looks like Abraham Lincoln is running a trial at the moment. 5, 3, 2, 1. All right, that is the end of Liberty's third driver trial. It's very interesting to see the different strategies that these teams are using, especially with their indicators. Because so far, the teams that have used indicators, we've seen that Broomfield simply used all of them to indicate an infected cell, and Liberty used them to identify cell by type, which are two very different approaches, but still both adequately and accurately use the indicators to determine what cells need to be moved where.
Yeah. Sorry, I just gotten rid of the background noise.
No worries.
Sorry. This is one of the things I'm sure all of us who work from home have learned, that now it's harder when everybody works from home, because everyone's got to share the same sound space. So, all right. Well, that was a good round. Looks like they're ready to go. Boy, they are moving through their rounds quickly.
Absolutely.
So hopefully, do we have Abraham Lincoln going yet?
It sure looks like it.
It looks like it, but I'm not seeing any robot movement. Oh dear.
Looks like Liberty is on their fourth driver round, I believe.
All right, so this is Paulina, is that right?
No, this is Veronica.
Okay. Oh, Paulina just finished. Okay. I think one thing that may be happening is teams need to remember about the grid space limit. Looks like Veronica has just picked up an infected cell and deposited it in an isolation frame that protects all those cells in the adjoining spaces from getting infected, as long as there are no other initially infected cells in those spaces. So Veronica is testing the cells. Okay, that's an immune cell, I'm guessing, because it's green. Uninfected is orange. And uninfected, okay. Gotta look elsewhere for those infected cells to get into that isolation frame. Uninfected, immune. Uninfected. Oh, infection cell, right there. Got it. Veronica is fast at picking up those infected cells and depositing them in the isolation frame. Now it can't infect any of the cells near it. So I kind of wonder about dropping all those vaccines in one spot, because then they could go and, once they've isolated all those infected cells, oh, it's up on top. It's in an isolation platform. I think. I can't quite tell if that's the one they're testing.
I think they're trying to drop off a cell. It looks like they're holding one, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that they were testing. So that's an uninfected cell right there. They need to move that away from that space. Although I think the isolation platform, if the infected cell is the one up there on the platform on that purple square,
look like
then, yeah, she's got that. She's going to put that in the isolation frame.
Looks like Abraham Lincoln has finished one of their rounds.
Oh, have they? I'm sorry if I missed it. Did they get robot movement?
I am not sure. I don't think so.
Oh, dear. Oh, I really want to see Abraham Lincoln get a robot going. All right, so back to Liberty. They are now tossing uninfected cells up on that platform. So it looks like they'll have 3 up there. Having uninfected cells on that high isolation platform, that is 40 points. If they could have gotten a vaccine up there, it would be 80 points a cell.
Right.
Looks like what they're going to do is put some more uninfected cells on that low platform. Those get 25 points each. And their time's up. So this should be a good scoring round. They got all of the infected cells into that isolation frame, that white square, and they got several uninfected cells on those isolation platforms, which
Very
is
nice.
a good score. Yeah. So the uninfected cells, if they stay uninfected at the end of the game, but they're just down the grid space, those are worth 10 points. If they get those into an isolation frame, that's 15 points. On that low isolation platform, which is the one on the right of your screen, it's 25 points. So if they got 2 cells up there that were initially uninfected and they remained uninfected because they're in the isolation platform, both of them, they get 25 points, and then 40 points for those 3 on each on the high isolation platform.
Very nice.
Okay, so one more round for them. Right? Have we switched? So Veronica's still presenting. Oh, looks like she's going to maybe drive the 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's okay this year. So normally the teams would have to submit their drivers list and drive in order. And you have to have a certain number of drivers. It's based on the size of the team. So large teams have to have more drivers. Small teams can have only 1 or 2 drivers. But this year, because the drivers would have to have a laptop that can accommodate the software, the National BRI organization has rescinded that rule for this year, and the teams get to decide who drives, and they don't have to have that required rotation. All right, so we're looking for infected cells. We're finding immune cells and uninfected cells on the Liberty team's feed.
And this is their last driver trial, correct?
I believe this is their 5th driver trial.
Okay.
You are correct. That round that Abraham Lincoln just completed, they've counted that as a time trial, and we have the score for that. Let's see. I've lost track of the Liberty. Have they found an infected cell yet, Jay?
I am not sure.
That one's immune. Oh, right there. They got one. Okay. Let's see if they can get that dropped into the isolation frame. So this is an interesting difference from the Broomfield strategy. So Broomfield was taking the infected cells and dropping them in 3 different isolation frames. There seems to be an efficiency benefit to Liberty of dropping all 3 infected cells in that isolation frame right there. So they don't waste time going over to those 2 remote isolation frames. So that was good that Liberty realized they could drop all 3 of those in the same place, and that would be okay.
Right.
So that's an immune cell hidden there behind the high platform. An uninfected cell, another immune cell in that grid space. Now they're going to check this last grid space. Oh, infected cell there somewhere. Oh, they've got it. Okay, very good.
So that's 2 of the 3, I believe.
Oh, excellent. So they're going to put that in that isolation frame space. Hopefully. There you go. I think they did it. Very good. It's hard to tell because it looks like there's only 1 cell there, but they definitely put 2 in there. All right, they're going to go test those last cells. Oh. See, so that configuration file had 2 infected cells in that corner that has that high platform. Those would have infected any uninfected cells in the 3 adjacent cells. And then because the infection continues to spread, the newly infected cells would have infected those in the cell to the top right, and so on throughout the board. So that's how the infection spreads if they can't get those cells isolated like they just did. So very good. What that means now is that hopefully, unless they get more than 3 cells in a grid space, which causes infection just according to the rules, regardless of what kind of cells they are, they'll put some of those. Now, putting the immune cell up there doesn't increase their score, but if they put uninfected cells up on that high platform, that's the low platform right there that they're working on, those are worth 25 points. Hopefully they haven't put more than 3 cells up there. And then, let's see, they've got an uninfected cell. So, I think they may be putting a lot of cells on that platform.
Liberty's about out of time, too. About 10
yeah,
seconds
they're
left
about
on
out
their
of
clock.
time. Yep, 10 seconds, 8 seconds left. All right, it looks like Abraham Lincoln is still working on some robot repairs.
Coding.
So they're back in the pit, I guess, would be. All right, almost done. 1 second, and game's over. So that was Liberty's 5th round.
I believe so, yes.
Yep, so they'll need to be getting ready for autonomous time trials while we get the scores there. And you know what? Maybe this makes sense to you, Jay, on the Abraham Lincoln screen. Looks like programming to me.
Definitely programming, but I'm afraid it doesn't make much sense to me. I was never the programming person on my team.
I'm glad to hear that. I have no idea what this is. So, oh goodness. All right, well, it'll be interesting to see what Liberty's strategy is for the autonomous time trials. So the autonomous time trial is where they push a button, the robot has 3 minutes to do whatever their pre-programmed script tells it to do. The 3 things in the autonomous time trial that the robot will try to do is 1, collect cells, but they really only want to collect uninfected cells because those are worth 10 points each. If they accidentally collect an infected cell or an immune cell, they lose points.
Right.
So objective 1, collect cells, but only uninfected cells. They can deliver the vaccines to the isolation frames. It's 20 points for each one of those vaccines. Those little kind of, there were tennis balls in the physical game field, but now they're just those little kind of lime green circles on the robot. Deliver those to those 3 white squares on the game field. Those are the isolation frames. And if they can reach up to those platforms and just clear a cell off the platform in autonomous mode, that's worth 25 points. That's got to be the hardest thing to do. So that's worth the most points in autonomous mode. The driver pushes 1 button and the robot has to operate all on its own. So it needs to navigate the game field and find those isolation frames. It looks like they're going to go drop vaccines. Nope. Yeah. Oh, did they get it?
Yes, they
did. Looks like they did. Success. That's fantastic. So now the robot, just based on its programming, is finding those isolation frames and dropping those vaccines. So they've got 2 down. That's 25 points each. They've got all 3 vaccines down. They've collected a cell. But did we see the indicator go on? We don't know what cell that is. And they brought that back to the robot starting box. So that's a collected cell. But it'll be worth 10 points if it's uninfected. But if it's immune, it's minus 10 from the 200. If it's infected, it's minus 20 from the 200. So I can't tell if there's anything in their programming that tells them what kind of cells they're picking up. So the robot seems to be going back and forth and picking up cells. Now it's changed its direction. It's going to go and, it got another cell. It's bringing it back to the robot starting box. So this is definitely a Roomba approach, where you kind of first go out, deliver those vaccines. That's a very good strategy because that's 20 points of vaccine in those isolation frames. And now the robot seems to be slightly changing its angle and going out and seeing if it can grab a cell. And if it does, great, comes back, drops it off in the starting box.
Looks like Abraham Lincoln is running through another time trial.
Okay.
Still don't see any robot movement, but hopefully that will change. I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, yeah, no, I see the time counting. So they are working on a time trial. Okay, and Liberty's picked up, so it's just slightly changing its angle, going out, maybe grabbing a cell and bringing it back. So they must be going with the odds. There are 12 uninfected cells. So those are worth 10 points each if they collect them and bring them back to the starter box. So that's 120 points. There are 3 infected cells. They'll lose 20 points for each of those if they pick one of those up and bring it back. And they'll lose 10 points each for the 6 immune cells. Oh, time trial's done. No, it's not moving, but they still have time to go.
Still no robot movement from Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, goodness, you hate to see that.
Yeah.
They've worked so hard this year. They've got about, what do they have? Do they have a half hour or so? But no, they've got plenty of time. They just need to get that robot moving. They've got plenty of time to run through their driver time trials.
Exactly.
But the robot, there's about 15 seconds left on the autonomous time trial, and the robot seems to have stopped. So it looks like it's collected several cells.
It looks like I think 4 is the number I see in the box.
Oh, do you see a? Oh, just the
and the time trial ended.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how that scored. They should get at least the 20 points for the 60 total points for 3 vaccine deliveries added to their 200. But what we don't know is what kinds of cells they collected.
Exactly.
So. All right. Wow, they could be done with their round really fast, Jay.
Because there's only 3 autonomous trials, correct?
3 autonomous trials, yeah. So
that was their first autonomous trial, I believe. Looks like Abraham Lincoln's working a little bit more on their coding, I believe.
okay.
I mean, it sure looks like coding to me, but I am not the coding
Yeah,
person.
no, definitely. I think it is. I hope it's not a software issue.
Those
Right?
are always hard.
Yeah. All right, looks like we're getting ready for autonomous mode number 2 for Liberty. All right, so they did really well in autonomous mode number 1. They're getting the config file.
Looks like it.
Okay. And it looks like Polina is getting the robot ready for the autonomous time trial. Okay. So I think the audience can see how really complicated the programming is this year for the kids, for their robots. So they have motors on the robots that they have to program for forward-backward movement. If both the wheels are going forward at the same time, the robot moves forward. If one's going backward, the other one's moving forward, then the robot will rotate. And then obviously both going backwards, the robot will move backward. So they've had to set up all of these parameters for the robot, including the rate at which the wheels turn, which affects the speed of the robot. That's kind of familiar. That's what they have to do when they're programming their robots, their actual physical robots. Okay, are we ready to go here? Oh, hopefully.
Looks like they're moving. Looks like Abraham Lincoln is moving straight onto their autonomous.
Oh dear, are they?
Looks
Maybe
like
they'll
it.
do their autonomous and then come back and do the time trial.
Possibly, yeah. That's what's on the screen
Okay.
right
Well,
now.
hopefully we've got two people with the software. So one can be running autonomous, and the other one can be working on getting their program running for a driver's time trial.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. We don't know how many of the students they have available to have this software downloaded onto their computers.
Right.
Okay. Sounds like Joe has been communicating with Larry saying it's not working. So Joe's their driver.
It's not ideal.
Oh boy, tough day for Joe. It's really hard for these kids when they get into these circumstances where things that, did work before suddenly are not working.
Yeah.
All right, so we're off on autonomous.
Always something like that. Something like that always happens on game day. It's almost a given.
Yeah, no, that happens an awful lot. And so we give these students a lot of credit that they stick with it and troubleshoot it and figure it out. And
Absolutely.
more often than not, they do. Okay, so we've got all 3 vaccines deposited into the isolation frames. Those are 20 points each in this autonomous mode. That was one of the 3 things that they can do. Now they're picking up cells and bringing them back. We don't know what kind they're picking up, so they could be worth plus 10 points if they're the uninfected cells. If they are infected, minus 20 each cell. And if they're immune, minus 10. So kind of just picking up cells, I think they're going with the odds.
Well, more likely than not, they're going to get some of those uninfected cells, but
Yeah.
luck can
Hopefully
be fickle,
that's
so
Yeah.
we will have to see.
Hopefully. And they don't know which they are because their indicators are not providing a feedback to the robot. I think that would be some fairly sophisticated programming to have a, if uninfected, pick out, if not, leave it. So. But yeah, their robot's moving fast and it just slight course corrections each round and it goes and it picks up a cell if it's there.
Yep.
So that seems to be working. And we're looking over at the Abraham Lincoln robot.
Looks like they're still having a little bit of trouble with that.
Yeah. Well, we've got some time to figure it out and make it work. So
Absolutely.
I hope they do. It's not all day like they would have had in a real game day, but they have 45 minutes?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So I think they can do it. All right, we seem to be even though there's time left in the time trial for Liberty, the robot seems to have stopped moving. So
It did this last time too, right around the same time, I believe.
Yeah, you're right about that. It did seem to stop. So I'm not sure if there's a way that they have 45 minutes. So if they want to go in and modify that autonomous mode programming to keep that robot moving forward and picking up cells, they have time to do that. They finished all their 5 time trials, did very well, and
it's also possible that they only want their robot to pick up a certain number of cells to increase the chances that they don't pick up a infected cell or an immune cell.
I don't know, right? I mean, because those cells have, what is it? It's 12 out of 21 are uninfected. And so, if they just, because the cells are randomly distributed at the beginning of each of these configurations, they may, it's unlikely, but they may have picked up one, if not more than one of those infected cells. We've seen cases where there have been 2 infected cells starting in a grid space. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Looks like Abraham Lincoln is still having a few technical issues, but
Yeah, I'm just gonna see if I can get the captions of what's going on. Okay, so it sounds like Joe's gonna try driving.
okay.
So, oh, no? Is he gonna switch back over? So it sounds like there may be some technical difficulties.
Ah, those are always bad.
Oh dear. All right, here we go. Well, no. They've got their configuration file for autonomous mode 3.
Liberty is just zooming.
Oh no, that's still the configuration. That's the ending for the last one.
Ah.
Oh, they've got to upload the results, and then they can
Right.
set up for the third round. Oh, it's so frustrating. We're not getting to see which cells are where, so we can see what they collected. But they will get the points for those vaccine deliveries. So
Yep.
Good for them. All right. Well, looks like they're continuing to troubleshoot over Abraham Lincoln. That's good.
Troubleshooting on the fly is an important skill to have. Not only
It
for
is.
this, but for work, for school.
Yeah, it is. No, and these kids are amazingly calm. So there we go. This is a good strategy for them. Deliver those vaccines. So they're programming those exactly where those isolation frames are, and they take the robot straight to those isolation frames and drop. Oh, and he's got us up. Okay, so they've got all 3 isolation frames with vaccines. That is plus 60 points on top of the 200 they start with. And now we just hope they don't lose too many points by picking up infected cells and bringing it back to the robot starting box. Got 2 there now. And I don't know if the audience has noticed the actual sort of layout or position of the cells within those 7 grid cells. Those are random each round. So it's not like they can tell the robot the cells are going to be lined up exactly this way. The placement of those cells, as well as their state, infected, uninfected, or immune, those are random. So you see how just to the right of the robot, those cells are now lined up 3 in a row. A different configuration file would not have that layout. So there you go. They've got another cell. That was interesting. They dropped it in a different cell and moved that one. So I wonder if they somehow knew that was infected.
Perhaps.
Oh,
It would be interesting. If
Yeah,
they
we're
figured
not
out a way
seeing
to
the
determine which cells were infected without using the indicators.
Yeah, if they it didn't drop that cell. I wonder if it can only hold 1 cell at a time.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it can only hold 1 at a time. So it needs to drop that cell so it can get another one. There we go. Good job. No cells there to pick up on that particular round. Oh, there we go. That's the 3rd autonomous round. So we could be done in the Liberty room. We'll wait and see. Maybe if we'll turn on captions here to see if they're getting ready to close that one up. Good job, though. Liberty ran 5 good driver time trials and 3 good autonomous rounds. So it
Good
seems
job,
they thought a lot about the strategy, and it was really effective. So that's typically the first thing that the students do. So in September we had kickoff, which is when we show the students and their teachers, and I'm sorry I keep saying the word kids, the students and their teachers what the game is about, what are the rules for the game, how do you score in the game, and then the students go back to their classrooms or wherever they went this year. They probably called in from home this year, downloaded the materials, read the rules of the game, and one of the first things that Best hopes they do is think about their offensive strategy and their defensive strategy. So offensive strategy is how do you score the most points, and defensive strategy is how do you not break your robot during the game, how do you not break the game field during the game, how do you avoid bumping into other robots in the game, how do you avoid losing points, getting into having your some type of a penalty or things like that. So it looks like Liberty spent some time thinking about their strategy and came up with a very effective strategy.
Absolutely.
So,
and strategizing is a big part of this game.
It is, yeah. Because you don't know until the end of the game, unless you have an indicator on your robot, which cells are infected versus uninfected.
Yep, absolutely. Looks like Abraham Lincoln might be trying something again.
Okay, all right. So they seem to be having maybe internet connection issues as well as maybe software issues. Okay. Fairly consistent strategy in the autonomous mode for Liberty. All right, let's see, what's the clock say? So we're getting close to, we've got about a little more than a half hour for Liberty. They can still get their driver time trials in if they can get the software to run. It looks like is it running? No, the time's running. Oh, I see some movement on the robot.
Oh.
But it's not moving forward, but it raised and lowered the mechanism on the front that carries out the vaccines and also picks up the cells. But the wheels aren't turning. So something's going on with the wheels. Oh dear. So for this round, nope, they've stopped the time. So I'm not seeing any more communication in that room.
No.
And the Liberty room is definitely closed, right? So I'm gonna.
Looks like there's a few people left in there, but they've definitely finished all of their trials.
Yeah. So let's look back in the chat. I'm not seeing any more chat. So we're not quite sure what's going on in the Liberty room. The timer is stopped in the middle of what would be their second round, I believe. So I don't know if that means, well, there is something happening. So I don't know if there's just a bad connection. Timer's going.
Looks like the vaccines moved, but the robot did not.
Yeah, the wheels are not turning. So that platform is moving, but the wheels are not moving the robot. So for whatever reason, the keyboard assignments for the wheel movement is not working. So what will happen if this driver time trial continues to sort of run the time, at the end of 180 seconds, so the 3 minutes, then this round ends and it can still be scored, but it'll be scored based on the positions those cells are in right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing would be if those 2 cells on the isolation platforms are infected cells.
Right.
Because those would be isolated then and not able to infect the cells below them, which means then the cells next to them don't get infected unless there's an infected cell somewhere. Or if those are uninfected cells on the high platform, they would get, if it remains uninfected, but it's the only cell up there, so it should, they get 40 points. So on the high platform and 25 points on the low platform if those are uninfected cells. But the infection would spread to the others. They're all in grid space. So you lose 120 points because I think it's just going to spread to all of them. You lose 120 points for if all 12 of the uninfected cells become infected, but they're just in a grid space. So
right.
We'll see. Let's see. So we've got the chat going on. It doesn't work. It's not running.
That's a disappointment.
And he'll send that. Yeah, that is a disappointment. I feel bad for the Abraham Lincoln School. Mm-hmm. They've worked hard on a lot of activities this year. Did very, very well. So it's, let's see. So the referee says something HW faults. I don't know, hardware faults. So I think it's a computer problem. Oh, that's a shame. You hate to see that. It happens though. It happens. Let's see. Do we have a way to confirm who's in that room? We can find out who's in that room. Have a way to confirm. Oh, no. So it looks like the student from Abraham Lincoln is going to be leaving the room. So Abraham Lincoln, we are so sorry for the hardware issues that you had today. It happens, and thank you so much for working at it. So the Abraham Lincoln student has spent an hour trying to figure out a workaround for some type of a hardware issue. We're not sure what it is. Mm-hmm. So good job, Joe. Thank you so much for sticking with it. And you know, that's robotics.
Yep. Tenacious. Tenacious is definitely the word I think to describe Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you work it until there's no more time to work it, or it's clear it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And we see that every year. The students design something and it works really well, and then it breaks, and there's just no opportunity on game day to repair it or replace it. And with a physical robot, you could still try to get something else to work as long as your robot could move on the game space. But in this virtual world, if your hardware is not able to operate the MathWorks Simulink, there's really nothing you can do. You really are sort of at a disadvantage. So, all right, I think that's it for the room. So, Jay, I think we're going to go to lunch early.
Excellent. Are we still planning on reconvening back at, I think 12:15?
Let's see. On my schedule, the teams come back into the prep rooms at 12:15.
Okay.
And then the YouTube feed for the final round of games begins at 12:30.
All right. So this stream, just so y'all who are watching are aware, this stream is going to stay up over our lunch break. So you don't need to leave or find a different stream. We should be back commentating probably around 12, 20, 25-ish, most likely. So
we should do that.
We hope to see you all back there then. But I think at this point, we are going to head to lunch, so can eat a little bit, and I hope that y'all have a wonderful lunch too.